He is engineer from University of Peradeniya in 2005, and he completed his MSc degree also from the University of Peradeniya, and technology, Australia. Dr. Saja has more than 7 years experience of professional experience working with several government organizations since 2004. Especially he worked in Red R UK in Sri Lanka and European Community Sri Lanka and Maldives office also. There he managed and monitored numbers of projects in pre and past disaster phases. He has trained many professionals and local practitioners in project cycle and also grant management for development projects. He started his academic and research careers in 2013 and continued to research and publish in high impact QI journals in the areas of resilience, risk and sustainability science. He is currently a global fellow at the Brown University of USA and young scientist IRDP and community solution fellow of the Department of State USA. So this is a brief of Dr. Saja. I know him very well. He is a very intelligent engineer. And so shall we start the technical session? Okay, now the participants are increased up to 26. Okay, now Doctor, I am handing this platform to you for presenting your sustainable development goals in successfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Nazir, Co-Chairman IES Lanka District. I hope you can hear clearly. My voice is, yeah, I'm sure I'm loud enough. Yes, right, so welcome. Without further delay, I would like to directly go to the session. We can have discussion, question and answers at the end if you have more clarification. And if you want to know about me, if those who do not know about me, we can also have a brief introduction later. So welcome everyone again and good morning. So I'm very delighted to present to you the sustainable development goals from the perspective from engineering point side. Sustainable development goals is a very wide subject. There is no particular field for it. It cut across everywhere, and it talks about everyone. So, but there is an perspective for engineers because engineers play an important role in sustainable development more than anyone else. I believe you will agree with me that engineers are key stakeholders, key players in sustainable development. So my talk today will be around giving you an overview of sustainable development goals. I'm sure most of you are aware of sustainable development goals since you're working in the government or in the non-governmental organization or in the private sector or even students or researchers. This is the most discussed topic, not only in Sri Lanka, it's a global topic. So I'm sure everyone is at least aware of sustainable development goals. But I'm trying to give you an overview what these sustainable development goals are at the global level, and then what are the key targets, as well as some of the relevant indicators to the Sri Lankan context. And we will have a kind of brief overview of how it is relevant to engineering, and then we can have a discussion at the end. So what I will discuss today is about sustainability. Again, as I said, sustainability is a long-rooted concept, even in engineering, similar to the concepts of resilience, similar to the concept of adaptation. There are three different concepts. I'll come to that later. And then how this sustainable development is built on. There are 5 key pillars of sustainable development, which was introduced by the United Nations in the when they formulated the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. And then we'll have a brief overview of each of the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm sure you know how many Sustainable Development Goals are there. Maybe I can do a small poll to check you how many Sustainable Development Goals are there. And then where Sri Lanka stands on these Sustainable Development Goals. And then I will take some facts and figures from the VNR 2018. VNR means Volunteer National Review, which is done in every 4 to 5 years. So as you know, the Sustainable Development Goals were adopted by the United Nations in 2015. Before 2015, we had Millennium Development Goals that was formulated in 2000. And 2000 to 2015, we had Millennium Development Goals that is now transferred into Sustainable Development Goals from 2015 to 2030, which is 15 years of timeline. Now, this VNR, Volunteer National Review, was done in Sri Lanka in 2018 to see how we are progressing in terms of each of these Sustainable Development Goals. And there is the second review that is ongoing now on this Volunteer National Review this year. So just to give you a brief on that, so I will give some more examples or more details of the process, how we monitor the Sustainable Development Goal progress. And then key drivers for SDGs, how engineers can contribute to it, what are the examples from the world. I have been writing about this in the Sri Lanka Engineering News digital version. So from issue number 43, every issue I have been writing about each of the Sustainable Development Goal and how it is relevant to engineering. So for further details, you can also refer that after this presentation. And then we'll have finally a discussion, how we can move forward and how we can contribute at the research level, if you are a researcher or a student, or how you can contribute in your work. If you are a high-level manager in your organization, for example, in the water board or in the CEB or in any of the government institution, road development authority, or any private sector, how you can contribute in terms of policy. And at the same time, there are young engineers as well who are really doing the things, implementing the projects. So you also have a role to play in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Right. So I am not sure whether you will be able to do this. I want to make it more interactive. At least some of you can do this. If you are connected through a computer, it's easy to do. Even if it is through phone, you can do that. We do it with the students during our lectures, so that we can see how we can 50 to 40 minutes. So sustainable development, what sustainable development means to an engineer, which means sometimes you are a very experienced engineer. So if you are in the computer, you can just click on the link. I will post that in the chat box. I'll post this link in the chat box. You can just click, it will go to a tool called Mentimeter. In the Mentimeter, you can just put your answers. or you just type www.menti.com and it will ask for a code. You can input this code 30641545. Then you can answer this question. Just put some words. What it means for you, what it means, the sustainable development for you. What the sustainable development means to you as an engineer from your past experience or from what you have heard in the past. So just click on the link. I just want you to be just interactive. So we can see your answers in a minute time. So if you start putting, just put 1 or 2 words or just 2 to 3 words, what it means for you as a sustainable development. Well, I don't want to give more kind of exercises or anything. This is not lecture. But just to see what do you think before we start, and then we can see at the end of the session whether your thinking of sustainable development is relevant or is right. Is there anyone who wants to try? This is a good tool. Okay, right? I have one answer from somebody. I don't know who answers, but I know the answers. So let me share that with you so that you can, now you see here. So this is what people are typing now. So we have 38 participants. So at least if you type, at least one person types, then we can see the answers. Now 4 people answered this question. So others also can try. This must be an interesting exercise as well for you if you have not used it. We used to use this for lectures with students. If you're in the mobile, it may be sometimes difficult. Okay, at least we have 5 answers. Please keep on typing, and then we can come back later. So it's about human development. It's about social change. There are good thinking going around. Save for future generation. Yes, it's an important part. Without wasting resources. Yes. Economically doing things. Yes. Effectiveness. Using the resources effectively and efficiently, carefully. Enjoying the resources, maybe leaving the resources for the future generation. Alternative ways of thinking, yes. Social well-being and development, environmental friendly. Okay, so at least we have some answers. I hope you can see those answers in the screen. So whatever you type is there. And some more people are typing. Without compromising the resources, yes. Social development. Yes. So this is a word cloud which captures an important word from your sentence. So don't worry if your real sentence is not there. It just combine all the related words into one word. Anyway, so at least, I mean, we have only limited time. So at least some answers are there already. So I'm sure you are really aware of what sustainable development means, but what it means to an engineer, maybe there are some answers. Yes, using resources carefully, environmental friendly, social development, without wasting the resources for future generation, industrial revolution. Okay, that can be a part of the whole process. Optimum use of resources. Right, so I will stop at this point, but those who have not answered, please continue. You can still answer those questions. Since we have limited time, I will stop at that point, but you have given some answers. So where the ecosystem integrity plays an important role. We can't do anything in the world, whatever we want, we can do, but to be sustainable, we have to be very careful in using the resources. That's what ecosystem integrity means. And natural use of natural resources. The biodiversity needs to be preserved. The environment plays an important role. So this is the sustainability triangle where all the sustainable development concepts are built on these three main areas. So this is not a new concept. It has been there since the start of since previous generations. We have examples like, for example, you may have heard to support a person, you don't give fish, you give a fishing rod, so that the person can continuously get his livelihood through fishing, rather than depending on your support through giving a fish. He can continue to do fishing if you give a fishing rod. So it's a simple form of sustainability approach. Right. So what is sustainable development? There is no fixed definition. And but one of the definition, if you want to define sustainable development, this is the most widely used definition by Rutland in 1987. Sustainable development is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the needs of the future generation to meet their own needs. I'm sure you have taken the words from this concept, so I'm sure you know what it means. At least this definition will help you to understand the background of sustainable development. If you have questions, you can also post it in the chat box. If it is relevant during the presentation, I will try to answer those. So, SDGs and engineers. I found a recent paper by Rahimfard and Torman in 2018, which discusses the important roles of engineers in achieving sustainable development goals. And what they mention is that engineers will be always challenged to meet the needs of growing global population, and while minimizing the pressure on our planet's resources. So the use of resources that you have covered in the in your posts in the Menti is about the use of resources. So without compromising the use of resources for the future generation, we also need to give a quality life for the future generation, so that if we extract more resources, we will have limited resources for the future generation. So with the minimizing pressure, or we can use the word for optimization of the resources, and we'll need to focus on the resource consumption in a way that does not exceed the ecological limits. So we need to preserve our environment so that we will not be harmed by the environmental consequences. Right. So with this basic understanding of sustainability and sustainable development definitions, we should always think of an integrated sustainability, not just only the sustainability, but also an integrated sustainability, which means we have social, economic, and environmental elements in the sustainable development, but we will have the disruptions like disasters, like climate change, which is a big topic in the world now, which is an important phenomena that restricts the sustainable development, and socio-political economic shocks that we have right now, for example, in the world after COVID-19, or during some or the current crisis that we have in the country or in the world. So we need to think our sustainable development within this frame, so that the communities can be prepared to face such shocks as well. So that, because the shocks will be a major barrier for development and for the sustainable development. And other words that are frequently used, mainly in the engineering sector, is green infrastructure. So in addition to sustainable infrastructure, we also talk about green infrastructure, And there is a concept called safe development or resilient development. So these are some of the interlinked concepts that are close to sustainable development. And we always need to target people, communities, and institutions that should come together for a sustainable development. Right, so sustainable development is not only about community development, it starts with the individual. It starts with me, it starts with you, it starts with your family, it starts with anyone else in the world, in the planet. So it starts with individuals, it goes to families, it goes to divisions, it goes to local authorities where you live as a community, and then district, province, country, region, the bigger continent, and the globe. So sustainable development goals are global in nature, but we can transform or we can contextualize it to the application in our own context, in our own community, to our own life, right? So because it's about the quality life. Right, so let me come to the point on the sustainable development pillars. There are 5 key pillars which are based on which used to develop the sustainable development goal. So as I said, it's about people. It's not only about people, but also planet. And then there are 3 other things. So people and planet are the physical things, but we also need to have partnership. Engineers cannot alone achieve successful or sustainable development. We need partnership with everyone. It's a cross-cutting issue. It's about the life of everyone. Peace is an important part. You need to have a peace for a such development. Without a peace, there will be no such development. Prosperity is also important. So you can see the description of each of these pillars, right? So prosperity is about fulfilling the needs of the people to live with harmony, to live in harmony with the nature. Peace is about just and inclusive societies where we have a peaceful life. Partnership is about implement the agenda through a partnership, not only a global partnership, but also a multi-sectoral partnerships. Engineers working with other sectors, health sector. So it's a holistic, shared, and long-term vision that to be the path forward for improving the lives of people everywhere. So that is the key idea of a sustainable development, and it has these 5 pillars. Right, so how many sustainable development goals? We have 17 sustainable development goals. Based on these pillars, the United Nations has come up with these 17 sustainable development goals. I can do a check if anybody wants to tell me all 17 goals without any the correct kind of 17 development goals. Well, some of you may know, some of you may not know. But the key theme behind the sustainable development goal is, the motto is called leaving no one behind. We need to target everyone in the planet, right? So it is applicable for our country as well. We need to target all the people in the country. So leaving no one behind. We need to have a partnership with everyone. We need to, so these 17 sustainable development goals, I will just quickly go one by one even from the next slides. But just to give you an idea, there are 169 targets. So it's too much to explain everything, to discuss each and every sustainable development SDG. This was developed for 2 years as a follow-up from the Millennium Development Goal, from the experience of implementing the Millennium Development Goals. And there are 244 indicators to monitor this progress. And there is a policy framework, and there are mobilization tools. Resource mobilization means you need finance, you need human resource, you need other resources, physical resources to implement any projects that comes under sustainable development goals. right? So as I said, there are 244 indicators. So all these indicators are devised for each of these SDG goal. Right. I will go through very briefly of each of these goals. Sometimes, for example, if you're working in the water board, you may only know about the Sustainable Development Goal number 6, which is access water for all, or the safe access to water. Or if you're working in the energy sector, you may be knowing about only the SDG 7, affordable energy, right? But you need to also understand all sustainable SDGs so that you have a you can't narrow it down to one sector. Right, so I'll just quickly go through. I will not go into details. As I said, I have written about this in the Sri Lanka Engineering News, Digital News in detail there. And there is one good resource that is called Engineering for Sustainable Development, that was a report released by the UNESCO and World Engineering Federation organization, WEFO, during the World Engineering Day in 2021. That report shows, it's a detailed report, shows how engineers can contribute to the achievement of SDGs. So no poverty is basically talking about the living, uplifting the living standards of poor and vulnerable people, bringing them above the poverty line. Right, so these are some of the targets. I'll not go into details each and everything, but just will give you an idea. And then if you want, we can come back and discuss. So food security. Now you see, now we have issues of food security in Sri Lanka. I mean, not only now, but we have a frequent problem sometimes. We have shortage of rice sometimes due to drought. There is less production, less paddy harvest. So we face shortage of basic staples. Don't think that we don't have a problem of hungry, but there are people who are still who cannot afford to buy the basic to meet the ends. So in terms of zero hunger, it's targeting more about the vulnerable groups who have limited access to food. And also it talks about children, malnutrition in children, and as well as the sustainable food production systems. Because as you know, Sri Lanka is around 25% of the population in Sri Lanka depends on the agricultural livelihood. So the sustainable food production system is very important, and that is covered in this SDG number 2. So ending all forms of malnutrition, because you know malnutrition will have an impact on children in their education and in their further growth. Right, that's 2. Number 3 is about good health and well-being. It's about the healthy life, and promote well-being among all ages, from children to from an infant, from a child that is born from day 1 to the elder who lives and die. So that complete lifespan, the health part, is covered under this SDG number 3. So, but there are specific targets of people with risk of diseases, children, for example, the deaths of under 5 years of age on newborns, or the chronic diseases like chronic kidney diseases, CKD, or other diseases like cardiovascular diseases or diabetics. I mean, Sri Lanka has a lot of cases like that. So this talks about non-communicable diseases, at the same time communicable diseases as well. So COVID-19 can also come. Also dengue is a major problem in Sri Lanka, so that is covered under this. And also waterborne diseases, like also we don't have malaria now, but we had malaria. So the maternal mortality rate means the number of deaths of live births, and then prevention of alcohol, narcotic drugs is also part of, because it harms the health. And one more interesting thing in this under health is that the deaths and injuries from the road and traffic accidents are also included here. Since it comes from a depth point of view, it is included here, but it is also covered in the SDG 11. We'll come to that later. Because this is one of the major problems in Sri Lanka, right? We have a lot of deaths due to traffic accidents. And CKD is another major problem in Sri Lanka, and suicide. I'll come to that figures later. So it's about health coverage. Although Sri Lanka has a very good health system, we still have problems. So how we can achieve these targets in years to come. Right. So I will just give a very basic snapshot of each of these three first, because I clustered them in different SDGs. But I will not go into statistics. These are all statistics that is included in the 2018 Voluntary National Review. But just to see, we still have population that is under poverty line. So that needs to be uplifted above the poverty line. We still have problems of malnutrition in Sri Lanka, and some people still have problems of severe food insecurity. It's maybe not throughout the year, but time to time when there is a change in the climate and the less production as a result of less production. Health, as I said, there are so many indicators like communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases, and suicides, road accidents, the deaths due to this, and CKDU. The problems is one of them. The problem that is increasing every year. Right. So this is the status of Sri Lanka, and you can think of your own community. The fourth is about the quality education that is more relevant to secondary, primary, secondary, tertiary, or even including ECD, early childhood education, ensuring the equitable quality education and promoting lifelong opportunities for all the population. So here, as I said, access to quality early childhood education. If you go to villages, the children have to walk long distance to go to the nursery school or the kindergarten, right? So sometimes they drop out due to the income or due to the difficulty. The students, the children may drop out from early childhood. So access to quality, although Sri Lanka has a mandatory early childhood education policy, there may be some dropouts still. Equal access to quality technical, vocational, tertiary education, and university higher education. As you know, still we have very limited opportunities in Sri Lanka. So before that is a primary, secondary quality education, the school education. And then gender is an important indicator here because, and it is relevant to engineering, the enrollment of women in STEM education, science, technology, engineering and management is very less, around 20%. So particularly engineering and technology. So, I mean, it could be because of lack of opportunities for women and girls and women. In terms of literacy and numeracy, there is one indicator. Sri Lanka is doing well, but there are still opportunities for improvement. Right. So this is about quality education. The fifth one is about gender equality, empowering women. So this covers the discrimination against women in all forms. This should be eradicated. Violence against women should be ended. And the harmful practices such as forced marriages. So these are some social aspects. Recognize and value the unpaid care. Because women in the Sri Lankan culture, they do a lot of unpaid work. For example, those who don't have jobs, outside job, they work in home. So it's an unpaid economy, right? So they spend time, so they contribute somehow, but that is not counted as a part of the contribution to the economy. Right. Then participation of women, for example, now the government has introduced this 25% representation in local authorities, compulsory for women, but still there are some hurdles for women to come to leadership positions in some sectors, not all sectors, but some sectors. For example, this, you heard about this Women's Day, right? I think that is on 8th of February or something. All about the cooking utensils. They did the promotion. So I mean, so it's a cultural thing that it is assumed that woman is responsible for this. All washing machines and food processing equipments. So right, so that's remind her that she is perfect. So this was kind of criticized in the social media. So that's why I just put this. Right. Anyway, just to have a kind of in the middle. Then the sixth one is clean water, which is more relevant to the engineering sector. For example, people in the civil engineering, not only civil engineering, it comes across all electrical and mechanical engineering as well. If you go for electricity production, agriculture, clean water supply, everything comes here. So it's about equitable access to safe water. It's important to note the safe water. There are still people in Sri Lanka who have no access to safe drinking water. I mean, I have seen in Batiklo, for example, or in Kilnochi, where still people don't have safe drinking water. They use the dug well, but it's not sometimes not clean. And we have problems in the north, like in Vavuniya, we can't drink the groundwater, right? So all those problems are still there. Then water quality. So it's about access to drinking water, safe drinking water. At the same time, it's about the quality. So reducing the untreated waste in the water and increasing the recycle and reuse of the water. So there are a lot of things here that is relevant to engineering. Use of efficient use of water and access to adequate, that is the water part. The sanitation part is the second part, which has adequate access to sanitation and hygiene. So there is a sector called WASH, water sanitation and hygiene promotion, that comes together, all comes together, because sanitation needs a lot of water. There's a lot of water to repairment. And end all form of open defecation, so that if you provide a sanitation facility, we can end open defecation. But sometimes in rural villages, people still sometimes do not have toilets. So they still go for open defecation, right? So these are global targets. So you can think of how it is applicable to Sri Lanka as well. We may not have such situations, but still there may be situations in some communities. and implement the integrated water resource management and protect and restore the water related ecosystems without pollution. So these are some of the targets that are covered in the clean and water sanitation. Then seventh this is about the energy. There are three targets, basically expect affordable and reliable modern energy services, because nowadays, you know, the problem of electricity, power cuts, modern energy services is important for anything, which has become an important part and parcel of the life. Increasing substantially the mix in the energy mix, the renewable energy, where now introduction of solar, wind, and other forms of renewable energy, and double the global rate of improvement in energy efficiency. So improving energy efficiency is also important for saving the energy. Right. So there are a lot of things that we can discuss on this, which is more related to the energy electrical sector. So these are some of Sri Lanka is doing well in terms of education and health, as you know. So, always we are doing well compared to other countries, but still we have many problems, right? In terms of education and health as well. And clean water sanitation, still 90% of the population using safely managed drinking water services. 87 have access to on-site sanitation facilities, and we still don't have a pipe sewerage system in many parts of the country. I'm sure both of people know about that, the exact figures. It's mostly in Gampaha, I think in Colombo, Western province. Right, then in terms of renewable energy, affordable clean energy, we have 100% access to electricity. And also the national grid is now everywhere. It's 100% covered in Sri Lanka. But there are still, we need to move towards the renewable energy, because there is I will come to that in climate change. Sri Lanka is also committed to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 20% through the climate change. It's called INDCs, Intended Nationally Determined Framework. It's called, you remember there was a COP26, Conference of Parties 26, held in Glasgow last year, where there was a reduction of greenhouse gases emission. It's about climate change commitments. Energy usage. It's not only about the power, it's also about energy, like the petroleum, the use of energy for transport, right? So it includes everything, not only the power sector. Right, so before we move to the next, this is just a breaker. More people in the world have phones than toilets. This is just there is a World Toilet Day that is on 19th November. This is the message to raise the awareness. Now people have 2 to 3 phones, but we only have sometimes 1 toilet, but we don't have. There are people without a sanitation facility as well. So the 8th is about economic growth and decent work. This is about the employment that is productive. So GDP, the gross domestic product growth, the target is 7%, but due to COVID-19, this has gone down, and also due to other problems. This target is about empowering the economically marginalized communities, youth, women, and communities. Now you can see enterprises where they employ small number of people. For example, the handloom industry. in the east. For the local export market, so that the economy that is contributed to the economy. So there is certain level of contribution from engineers. For example, inventing a new mechanical machinery for SMEs, improving their efficiency. So those kind of contributions also engineers can make. Men and women, for example, in a daily wage. For example, those days, I remember when I worked in the north, it's about 750 rupees for women. For that same work, men get 1,000 rupees. So there are some level of may have changed. Right. So youth unemployment is a big problem now, even after the COVID-19, and also the informal sector has lost jobs. For example, due to COVID-19, all these crises, informal sector, for example, the trishaw drivers. We have a large number of trishaw drivers in Sri Lanka. So that's the informal sector. And also this includes tourism sector, the labor rights, eradicating the child labor, right, or forced labor, or discrimination in the labor sector. So there are many indicators and targets in this one. That can withstand all disasters, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization. So this includes industry, innovation, infrastructure, right? All three. And innovation, there is a big drive on this innovation as well in Sri Lanka, mainly at the technology level. There are so right? So research, upgrading technology, all innovation comes here, and also ICT. I'll go quickly because we'll be running out of time if you go in detail all these goals. The 10th one is about reducing inequality. We talked about it in some places, but there is a specific goal for this, because inequality will have a major consequences in the development. So increasing the income growth of bottom of the households who have less needed, and regular and responsible mobility of people, so that it's safe. For example, you have heard about the problems of housemaids that go from Sri Lanka to the Middle East sector. They are facing a lot of discriminations. Reduced. Right, then about the policies, right? So social protection. Social protection is like, for example, you have heard about Samruddhi. That is one of the biggest social protection schemes in Sri Lanka. So similar schemes, there are many other schemes as well. So it's about not only equality, but also equity. So equality means you support a particular target group. For example, a person with a disability, you can't give a bicycle like you give it to a person, right? You have to give us bicycle that suits him to do his work. So that's where the word comes in. So just to give you an idea of what is equality and equity. The 11th is sustainable cities and communities. This is another important aspect for engineers, where it talks about affordable housing schemes, upgrading slums. We have some slums still in urban areas, and some areas are becoming slums with little or low quality services. So that's where engineers can play an important role by planning sustainable in the traffic transport accidents in SDG 3. So including road safety is an important part, and then public transport systems, human settlement planning, preserving the cultural and natural heritage. This is another important aspect, so that tourism can do, so that our culture can be preserved. And reduce the deaths and economic losses due to disasters. Sri Lanka is one of the top listed countries for climate hotspots. We have so many disasters, flood annually. We have we will have cyclone. Or if you go to the central island, we have landslides. If you come to the coastal area, we have the risk of cyclones and other disasters. And environmental degradation, air quality is becoming a problem. Waste is a huge problem in Sri Lanka, as you know. So these are covered under the SDG number 11. And public spaces, we have limited public spaces, shrinking because of not improper planning. 12 is about consumption and production. This is about the about the what do you call it? I just I'm running out of that word. Sorry, circular economy. So which means we reduce, reuse, and recycle. That concept is part of this 12 sustainable consumption and production. The use of natural resources, reducing the food waste, and we use environmental friendly chemicals, recycle the waste, safety practices or sustainable practices in the institutions, right? So, and this is also linked to the fuel usage as well nowadays, right? For example, this is an unforgotten crisis. This clothes. There is limited recycling or reuse of clothes. This is a problem everywhere, in addition to the waste problems that we have in Sri Lanka. And even everyone of us will have a lot of used clothes, which we will not know how to discard it, how to reuse it. In a waste dump, right? So it creates problems, right? So 13th is about climate change. So in terms of climate change, the key targets are increasing the resilience of climate change risk. And for example, we have an issue of drought every year. And for example, now we have heavy rain during the drought period, and drought period, we have a heavy rain. So there is a change in the pattern, so that the farmers lose their products. So the climate change awareness needs to be there. And we also have a problem with heat waves in Sri Lanka. And also Sri Lanka is a heat island. We sometimes, for example, March, April, we have a very large heat waves as well. So climate is changing, so we need to adapt to mitigate the impact of climate change. So you can see, as I said, 85%, it's a recent World Bank study, 85% of it could be a flood, it could be a landslide, it could be a chronic water problem, scarcity of water. For example, nowadays in Kurunegala area, due to drought, there is no water. They don't have a pipeline water, so they depend on the dug wells. And if there is no, if during drought period they have a water. But I'm not going to go into these details, but there made by Sri Lanka, and this includes the reducing the greenhouse gas emissions by 15%, and also preserving the forest cover to 32%, so that we can have a low carbon emission. So that has all relevant engineering sector, power, culture. So these house gas emissions. So by introducing innovative, new, safer, cleaner technologies, water, which means about the marine ecosystem, use of marine resources. Nowadays, this is not only about the fish and the other species inside the sea and the rivers. It is also about the coastal areas. Sri Lanka is in the 5th place in the world on the coastal pollution. Sri Lanka is in the top 5th place, the largest polluter, 5th largest polluter in the world. So our coastal area, Sri Lanka is an island, our coastal area is polluted. So reducing the pollution, not only coastal pollution, but also reducing the marine pollution. Now we had a case of oil leakage or the system, right? So this is about this, and then there is a problem of microplastics eaten by fishes, and then we eat fish. So all those problems need to be tackled. Then 15th is about life on land, protecting our forest cover, protecting our ecosystems is another important part to reduce the biodiversity loss. Sri Lanka is very rich on this. It is important that we save our forest, wetlands, mountains, dryland, all ecosystems, so that it can be used by the future generation. Hold the deforestation, increase the reforestation by planting trees, and conserve our mountain ecosystems and threatened species. Sri Lanka is also very rich on some species. Right, again, so these are some of the key indicators that also need to be tackled. In some areas, that is a problem. So I'll not go into details of this, but just to show. The last two goals, I will stop with this. I also have some more slides, but I can stop, and if you have questions, we can discuss. The 16th is about more of a peace, justice, strong institution. This is more of a living environment and about inclusive societies. We can have very good physical infrastructure development, but we need to have a peaceful environment. We need to have a just system, so that the development can be inclusive. So it's about reduce all forms of violence, reduce all forms of abuses, exploitation, dealings and corruption, handling corruption, handling bribery, more accountable, transparent institutions. There are so many things. Right? The last one is about partnerships. So this partnership means we can't achieve sustainable development without the integration of all these 16 goals. So achieving sustainable development goals require partnerships. So that's why it is important that we should work together. Right, so it's about technology sharing, it's about trading. It's a global aspect, but it is also very relevant to multi-stakeholder partnership, capacity building, financing, and all these come under this. Time, maybe it's now 11 o'clock, so 45 minutes I have taken for introducing this. If you want to have a discussion or question and answers, now I can stop without I'm talking. Then I can just take 5 more minutes to conclude this session by going through the few more slides. Well, I mean, just to start the question and answer session, it's good to, I mean, learn these. I mean, they are very nice to talk. They're very interesting to
Yeah.
listen, but we also need to think practical reality. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask me. We'll take 5 minutes for questions, and then I'll finish with. Yeah.
Good morning.
Yes. Good morning, Satish.
I want to know, but this is actually the SDGs. The SDGs is implemented in 2016. This is correct. Then actually now we passed nearly 7 years, more than 7 years. What about that progress, that target, especially in Sri Lanka? It is in actually that's target is in 2030, and now we are now in nearly 7 years past. So if you have any measurement to measure the progress or target, what about that idea?
Right. So there is I would suggest you to look at the website called SDG Tracker. That is specific to Sri Lanka. I can quickly show that to you. Then you can get an idea. It's called SDG Tracker. Here. So this will show you where we are in terms of SDG. This is available for all the countries. This is for Sri Lanka. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, it is clear. Yeah.
Right. So this is a sustainable development report, and this is for Sri Lanka. It shows every indicator where we are. For example, poverty, we are in a good progress. Poverty headcount, for example, another indicator, you can see all these targets. You can see if you click on here, it shows the past progress. You see here, you can see the graph. So this is available. This is a good online tracker. If you want to learn anything, for example, population using at least basic drinking water services, this is much relevant to you for those who are working in the water board. So you see from 2001, there is an increasing access to basic drinking water. And you can see wastewater treatment, there may be still no progress. Population using at least basic science, you can see. So this tracking is there. It's a dashboard. So just go to this website, you can see. So for example, another, see here, for life below water, there are problems. If it is a red color, it's problem. So those, it is there. You can do a live monitoring check, but all depends on data. And in Sri Lanka, data is a big problem, but this is done based on whatever the data is available. Okay, Satish, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, I got. That the thing is that it is monitored by it is monitored by international or in local representative.
Well, there are. Okay, I will explain the process. So this is Sustainable Development Goals. It's an UN instrument globally, and in Sri Lanka, it is handled by United Nations Development Program (UNDP). And UNDP, they do their own independent assessments as well. But at the same time, there is a Sustainable Development Council in Sri Lanka. It's called SDC, Sustainable Development Council, which is directly coming under the president, I guess, which used to be under the ministry. I think, I don't know which ministry is that now. So that Sustainable Development Council, SDC, if you go to their website, they also do continuous monitoring. But the data is a big problem in Sri Lanka. They may need to depend on the statistical data from the statistical department or sometimes from provincial authorities. But so you can see also, for example, if you go to SDC, you can see what data they have. Or I will show you another slide. Since you asked, I will show that. For example, in Sri Lanka here. So this is how the data map for SDGs. You see current data availability is highlighted in yellow. So all these 244 indicators are mapped here only for some the data is available. So the remaining there is no data available. So data is a big problem, but some basic data you can interpret. And UNDP, UN is supporting Sri Lanka to do this through SDGs, Sustainable Development Council. And in the process, I will explain that also for you, just for you to understand. There is a monitoring process which called voluntary national review. As I said, it was done in 2018, and the next one is happening 2022. There is one coming up in the Eastern Province on Tuesday. This Tuesday there is one. So then now earlier in 2018, government has done a national review. Now they also consult provincial level stakeholders, so to get more data. And it's not only about a quantitative statistical data, we also need to have a qualitative data so that you can measure the progress. It's not about numbers, it is also about the quality. There is another process called Voluntary People Review, VPR. This was also done in Sri Lanka because I think in 2008 there was a global level review, so Sri Lanka presented it. Similarly, there is another global review Sri Lanka is going to present. That's why they are doing this. And there is an independent review by some stakeholders, particularly in international or now non-governmental organizations and some civil organizations. They are also doing some monitoring. And there are some discrepancies between these two. So it's a big process. But just to tell you, in summary, there is a monitoring method, but which is not comprehensive. But still, we can get some ideas. Okay, right.
Yeah. Okay.
Your comments is also okay. I mean,
well, Dr. Saja, it's me, Francis Malabe. Thank you for your valuable session. And I have a question based on the data you just showed that really opened the question. What actions has been done based on the data so far? For instance, the 16 SDG, the Sustainable Development Goal, that's about the peace and where the corruptions also comes into. So maybe the data is not available in detail, but what IMF has done so far to avoid it or stop it up to now. I mean, maybe this is a hypothetical question, I don't know, but yeah, any feedback is valuable here.
Well, on SDG 16 and in terms of corruption, I mean, even if you look at the report in the VNR, the Voluntary National Review, that is the report by the government. I think government acknowledges that there is a higher level of corruption in different sectors at different levels, and but there is a global corruption meter. If you go to that global corruption barometer, that will also show that Sri Lanka is high on the corruption. So, and if you look at the independent reviews, that also highlight the corruption in different sectors and in specific sectors as well. So that is really there. I mean, the point is there, but at the end of the day, it comes to the policymakers to make it to implement programs to reduce the corruption. So there is a common consensus that Sri Lanka has not done much because the corruption barometer also has gone up in the past. So in the recent past. So that is, I mean, it's very obvious, but there is less policy level kind of initiatives to reduce that. So at the end of the day, I mean, that is then very interesting for engineers. World Engineering Federation, WEFO, they have also taken the corruption in the engineering sector. There is a separate initiative for that, and they have even assigned international some kind of regulation also. So if you go to WEFO website, you can just go through a lot of get a lot of details about how engineering organizations can reduce the corruption. What are the systems that you can introduce? All those are there. So it's not only, I mean, Sri Lanka is another case, but also in the engineering sector, there is a special consideration for that. Right. So, I mean, I don't have answer for this. I mean, as you know, but this is a real problem, as you rightly said. And it all depends finally on the policymakers.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All your comments, you don't need to just ask me questions. If you have comments about this, if you have come to know that, okay, this is really alarming, then you can also comment on it, because it's all about engineers, how we can contribute in the achievement of SDGs. Okay, so let's come back in 5 minutes time for kind of the last round of questions. I will just quickly go through, since you have asked questions, some of these details may be here. So I will not go into details of localizing SDGs and challenges here. Some of these we have discussed. With the current situation evolving in Sri Lanka, there may be more challenges than this. Right, so I will not go into this. This process I have explained to you. This is a very interesting some cartoons that I have just put here for you to think where we are. It's not only about the SDGs is not only about the talking about big policies. It is also about a behavioral change. It's also about an individual contribution, right? So, for example, now we have a big problem of accidents, right? Everybody is afraid of taking to the road, and similarly, you see the picture at the bottom. I mean, it's about behaviors, right? And also one of the very good cartoon that I have picked up from Avanta, the Sri Lankan famous cartoonist. You see how he thinks about 4 engineering organizations: RDA, Water Board, Electricity Board, and Municipal Council. So this is why you need the coordination and coherence to achieve SDGs. I mean, SDGs is a big word. It is talked at the UN level, but we need to do small things that can really contribute to the quality of life. So I don't need to explain this, but just for you to think. These things I will not go into detail. These are basic that you know. As I said, it needs a connected approach. You can't achieve one. By achieving one, you will not achieve another. But if you achieve one, it doesn't mean that you achieve another. It is very well connected, right? So, for example, as I said, health is connected to climate change. It's connected to consumption and production. So it's very well connected, right? So I will not go into these details, but this I have shown you how the data is. So what we should do now, there is a trend among the different disciplines for cross-disciplinary approaches. I mean, the past trend is that we only focus on, for example, if you're engineers, we only focus on engineering. But nowadays, it's more than that. We need to have a holistic understanding. For example, if you're an engineer working in the water board, you need to know how the water is not only managed for water use, but also how the water is used for electricity, how the climate change impact the water use, how the production and consumption is linked to the water use, how there is innovation and industries, technology can contribute to the water efficiency. So it's so much cross-disciplinary. It's a multidisciplinary. We can't solve. So sometimes we solve one problem, another problem comes in because we don't have a cross-disciplinary approach. So this is what nowadays most of the research, most of the funding for projects coming for cross-disciplinary research. So that's where engineers need to work in close collaboration with others. Right, so some of the things that we have done at the Southeastern University to promote sustainable development among the students, those who are going to go and work in the industry. So we have started celebrating the World Engineering Day since the first World Engineering Day in 2020, 2021. So we have done some discussions on how engineers can contribute and what are the problems. And there are 3 key projects that are done at the Southeastern University now, which are funded by European Commission, mainly 2. One is called CC Water Project. It's called Graduate for Climate Change Adapted Water Management. There is another project, it's in the mechanical department. This is called Lanka. This is training for Hub for Renewable Energy Technologies in Sri Lanka. These are 2 big projects that are now undertaken. So there is more interest on doing more research and support. And there is another center called 5G Innovation Center by Dialog, those who are in the telecommunication sector, but this is also becoming multi-sectoral, not only telecommunication, but also now, for example, there was a smart waste bin project which got an award for contributing to the 12th SDG. So these research are also undertaken in the university. This is about waste management that I have done personally. Right, I think that's all, and this is my last slide. These are some of the valuable resources for you. This is the latest report on the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations. This is the Voluntary National Review 2018. 2022 is coming up very soon. And this is the report I talked about, and most of my articles, my slides are based on this. Engineering for Sustainable Development is by UNESCO. It is a very detailed report of with 190 pages, which shows how engineers can contribute in different sectors and how the world engineering in different parts of the world contribute. And this is a book that I published recently in Tamil. Those who are interested can also get this book and read. I have given very layman explanation in Tamil in 3 pages for each of the SDG in this book. This is available in bookshops. You can also get and have an idea. Targeting even a normal person can understand what sustainable development goal is and what are the challenges, what we can do in Sri Lanka from personal level to the institutional level. And there is the latest monitoring report, like the Shatish asked a question. This data is available in a presentation by Sustainable Development Council, March 2021, very latest data. This is a very detailed presentation of 100 slides. You can go through this and you can see what the progress Sri Lanka is making. Right? Okay, I think, and these SLEN articles is available in the IESL website from issue number 43 up to issue number 48. You can get my writings on SDG, targeting each of the SDG. So you can just go through it if you want more details and how it is relevant to engineering. Okay, so that's it. I skipped some slides because we are running out of time. It's already 11 past 11. So I will finish with this. So SDGs need innovation. It requires problem solving, which is a key attribute of engineers and engineering, and which also need volunteering and service to humanity. Right, so with that, I thank IESL Eastern Chapter Chairman, IESL Empire District Co-Chairman for giving me this opportunity, and I hope everybody has at least got some idea of SDGs, what world is talking about. So yeah, so thank you for your time, and thank you for your questions. Thank you.
Hello. If anyone have questions.
Yeah, if you have any final questions, I'm ready to. So we have 5 more minutes, I think, for 11:30.
I think if there is no more questions, we will wind up this session. Actually, yes, Dr. Aslam Saja, right? I am very much thankful to you for delivering this very, very important technical session today on sustainable development goal. It's like all engineers from different organizations and engineering student as well should aware of sustainable development goal and work towards their contribution in achieving this goal. I think Dr. Saja, you allocated your valuable time for this session. I hope all the participants have benefited by your presentation. I'd like to thank you again on behalf of IESL Eastern Chapter. Thank you so much for your sessions. So by this, shall we wind up this session? Right? Okay, we will wind up this session.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all. Thank you for all. Thank you very much.